Hello and welcome once again to the Random Wrestling Review and our local to global series. We're into February of 2001 and we've just come off of a pretty big episode. The last couple of episodes have been pretty big. The last two events have been pretty important. Let's just have a look at what's happened so far in 2001. So you'll remember at Power Surge, which was our last show actually, let's go back to Welcome to the Jungle. So at Welcome to the Jungle, Chris Harris won the RWR North West title. And what we saw happen was Bruce Hart came out to the ring and James Storm, Chris Harris's regular tag team partner, kind of tried to stop Buddy Wayne, Bruce Hart. I keep getting Bruce Hart and Buddy Wayne mixed up. Apologies. Bruce Hart tried to stop Bruce Hart getting involved in the match. And this caused a distraction for the referee, and that allowed Jim the Anvil Neidhart to come in, clothesline Dave Batista, and give Chris Harris the victory. Chris Harris then celebrated with a surprised James Storm and with Jim Neidhart after the match as the show ended. And then at Power Surge, the whole thing became a little clearer because the main event of the night saw Ace Steel and Barry Buchanan challenge the Mavericks for their Northwest Tag Team titles, and in that match, Chris Harris turned on his partner James Storm, allowing Steele and Buchanan to take the titles, but most importantly, allowing Bruce Hart to come out onto the stage and tell James Storm that he is now on notice and that his 30 days notice begins right away. And then Chris Harris shook Bruce Hart's hand and therefore exposing that Chris Harris, and Jim Neidhart apparently were all working together on this plot. And we will give you some more information on that, I'm sure, at the next show. Fighting Spirit 4 is our next show. Let's just check that everybody is available for that event. What we're doing, availability is what I'm looking for. Yeah, everybody is available. We don't need to make any further we don't need to take we don't need to do any further information about what's happened in the past. So let's take a look at the game world a little bit before we move on, because Clash of the Champions for WCW happened, and in that event, Chicky Star won the main event to retain the WCW World Heavyweight title against Ric Flair. We also had Scott Hall and Arn Anderson defeat Bad Blood, which was Bam Bam Bigelow and VK Wall Street. Randy Savage defeat Brad Armstrong, and Hugh Morris get a victory over Sting. Now, that one in particular, in my opinion, is a significant match because Sting has, in fact, can we click on him here? I think we can, has, in fact, signed for the WWF. So he's leaving WCW, I'm assuming, in a matter of days, and has gone to WWF. So WCW have lost another one of their big stars in this company to the unrelenting machine that is WWF. So that's a pretty big deal there. Sting going to WWF. There was a bidding war for his services, which obviously was won out by the Titan-based company. So with all that in mind, I think it's time for us to move on to Fighting Spirit 4 and do our stuff. Before we go in, oh no, we looked at the finances last time. I was going to look at the finances again, but no point, I don't think, right now. Let's just hope that the finances continue to go in the right direction for us as a company, because it's looked pretty good. The last month looked really good. I think we made a profit of like four grand. Let's see if we can continue to do that into the rest of 2021. And as I said, we can then start to think about potentially upping our production quality values and therefore potentially get a broadcasting deal. I've looked at all the different places where we could get a broadcasting deal, and there are 3 regions where if we did have a slightly better production setup, we could get TV coverage in, which would be really handy because I want us to start expanding as a company a little bit further now than just the Northwest, where obviously is our home base. So Fighting Spirit 4, the main event of which was set in our last show. It's going to be Dave Batista versus Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Just scanning to see if there's anything important that we need to look at in the news this time around. I don't believe there is. So that's going to be our main event. Let's go ahead and book the rest of this show, shall we? Oh, we've got a backstage incident. We don't get many of those. And it's Jim Neidhart. What's he done? He's caught smoking, breaking the locker room rules. I'm going to just slap him on the wrist. Don't think we need to go any further than that with that. But that's the first time we've had a negative. I think the first time we've had a negative event in the whole save to this point. So that's something to watch with Jim Neidhart and bear in mind, because Jim Neidhart is already a pretty expensive resource for us. But anyway, he's in the main event against Dave Batista on this event. We've also got a title match, which will see Chris Harris take on CW Anderson. And that is a good time for us to take a look at the rankings. And that is because CW Anderson has recently accrued enough victories to be called the #1 contender. And obviously, with Chris Harris being heel, it feels like a more appropriate title match for him than either Rex King or a Still, also who have 11 points. Underneath him, you can see there's quite the drop off. So you've got Charlie Haas, Barry Buchanan on 10, then Teddy Hart on 8, and Kimo on 6. And after that, it goes down very quickly to Eric Young on 3, then Bobby Walker, Mark Henry, CM Punk, James Storm, Sean Stasiak, and Buddy Wayne all on 2 points. Jim Neidhart on 1, Batista on 1, and TJ Wilson and Billy Kimmon on 0. So there's a big drop off after the top of the rankings. Actually, if you look at this again, what you will see is that other than Teddy Hart and CW Anderson, everybody down to Eric Young, who has only got 3 wins, are heels. So that might cause us some difficulties, some issues, some practical issues as we go forward in the game in terms of future title contenders for Chris Harris. But we will hopefully ride that out. And the game appears to have frozen here. No. Oh, no, it hasn't frozen. I'm already on the screen that I'm trying to navigate to, so that'll be why. So we're going to start the show with an angle. I think it's an angle that we all need to see effectively. It's going to be Bruce Hart, Chris Harris, and it will be Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Although he's not going to talk, we'll just have him menacing in the background. And basically, Bruce Hart and Chris Harris are going to explain their plan that was successful with the last 2 shows that we've had. So it's gonna be a reasonably long one, this one, because I've got to talk a bit about it, and I'll go into more detail about that when we actually run through the show. This is a pretty big angle in general. Then the opening match of the night is going to see Rex King against Eric Young. I think this is a match that is actually, these two have wrestled a lot, but not in the Random Wrestling Review. I don't think they've had a singles match in our company. Oh yes, they did late last year. Whatever, it doesn't matter. This one is going to be won. I'm going to make it reasonably short. It's going to be won by Eric Young, and that's going to happen because of the interference, outside interference from Bobby Walker. So Bobby Walker, obviously, and Rex King still in a feud. And that's how that one is going to play out. Rex King is unhappy. We will just keep him strong. I don't mind keeping him strong here. Eric Young is somebody I'm also thinking about perhaps not keeping around much more, because we haven't really done much with him, and he's been around a little while now. So he hasn't really evolved into any kind of storyline or character through the natural course of just what we're doing. So I am starting to think about what his future is anyway. Now, after this match, Rex King is obviously going to be very angry, and he's going to get on the microphone and challenge challenge Bobby Walker, who is unhappy, and challenges Walker to a loser leaves RWR match in 2 weeks. And we'll say it's accepted by Walker. It doesn't have to be a long one. Let's make that 4 minutes. Rex King angrily, having lost to Eric Young, challenges Bobby Walker to a loser leaves Random Wrestling Review match in 2 weeks, which is accepted by Bobby Walker. And this, as you will probably imagine, is my response ultimately to the way Bobby Walker has performed really to date. It's just not been good enough, and we brought him in not very long ago, hoping that he could be a reasonably competent sort of mid-card act, but it just hasn't really worked out, and so we're letting him go. Now, Fighting Spirit is a reasonably big show on our calendar. We haven't got I wouldn't say we've got an absolutely premium lineup for this show. So we thought we would add Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge to the bill. I said I was going to use them a little bit, having signed them accidentally to kind of ongoing deals when I should have just signed them to a one-off deal. But we are going to keep them around for a little bit and use them here and there. And on this night, they are going to defeat the team of Mark Henry and Sean Stasiak. In fact, we're going to have Sean Stasiak lose it, I think, this time. He might not be happy. We'll find out. Pinfall finish, but we're also going to have a distraction finish here with TJ Wilson being the distraction to Sean Stasiak. And this, of course, follows the stuff that's been going on between these two teams. I say Mark Henry and Sean Stasiak and TJ Wilson and Teddy Hart in the last few shows. Obviously, at Welcome to the Jungle, they went to there was a 6-man tag match. No, yes, Welcome to the Jungle, the 6-man tag match, and then in the last week, obviously the two teams kind of they came into contact with one another, and Mark Henry and Sean Stasiak beat the hell out of Hart and TJ Wilson. So this was kind of a measure of revenge for Wilson and Hart in this one. So after this, we're going to get the RWR North West Championship match. Now, this is a rarity for me because I'm not putting this in the main event. Now, that is partially because I felt like it wasn't a high enough profile title match, but also because we had at least advertised Batista versus Jim Neidhart ahead of time, and it just felt like a more appropriate main event. Plus, there was some storyline or show elements for this one where I wanted this to not be on last. So Chris Harris is going to win. We'll make this the storytelling match, and he's going to get the pinfall victory. No interference here. Chris Harris is just going to get the win and make his first defense of the Northwest title. Then we're going to have a bit of a grudge match tag team contest as the unlikely pair of Buddy Wayne and CM Punk come together to face Ace Steel and Billy Kidman, both of the Rebellion. I'm just going to make sure that they are actually in the Rebellion because they don't seem to ever come up. See, I haven't officially put Billy Kidman in the Rebellion. That's why it keeps coming up as not in. It doesn't come up with their name. He's just a member of the group, Billy Kidman. So let me just rename that now. There you go, the Rebellion, Ace Steel and Billy Kidman. So it's Buddy Wayne and CM Punk versus the Rebellion, Ace Steel and Billy Kidman. We're going to have in the match, we're going to sprinkle in some elements here where Buddy Wayne and Billy Kidman struggle to get on and struggle to trust one another because, of course, of their previous wars with one another. But they are going to come out on top of this one, and Buddy Wayne is going to get a pinfall over Billy Kidman in the match. And this will continue both the stories, CM Punk versus Ace Steel and Buddy Wayne versus Billy Kidman, but with Buddy Wayne and CM Punk, coming out on top. We'll make this 14 minutes, so it's a pretty good length match. And then we have the main event, which will be Dave Batista versus Jim the Anvil Neidhart in the main event. And I think what we're going to do with this one, 13 minutes, but we're going to make it a draw. It's going to go to a double count out finish. That's what's going to happen between these two. Jim Neidhart furious at the booking. Got to keep keeping him strong, which is hiring, and he's still furious. He might not like this no matter what I do. Let's also protect him and hope that that's enough to keep Jim Neidhart happy. It is not. He's furious with this booking. And he's not been furious in the past. We've actually had him able to lose other matches. And this one he won't draw. So Jim Neidhart is clearly making some problems for us, which I'm not loving. I'm really not loving that. What do I do here? I'm just going to go ahead. I think ultimately they need to draw. That's what I want them to do. So they're going to draw. And Jim Neidhart's just going to have to suck it up, I'm afraid. So after the match, what's going to happen here is Jim Neidhart and Chris Harris is going to come to the ring and help Jim Neidhart beat up Dave Batista. But the man making the save, of course, is James Storm. So Neidhart is joined by Harris in an attack on Batista. James Storm makes the save. Yeah, that'd be a 6-minute thing. Booking analysis, just that Jim Neidhart is furious with the finish of his match. That's unfortunate, but unavoidable at this stage. I'm going to add Chris Harris to this story as well, just to make that clear that that's continuing. So this is our event, Fighting Spirit 4. I think 4 reasonable matches, though, as I said, I would accept that this is not perhaps at the level that we'd like for Fighting Spirit 4, but this is our show. We're not going to be penalised for anything, so let's bring you Fighting Spirit. And in front of 187 people in the Marshall Center, which I don't think is a record of any kind, we have the opening segment. Bruce Hart, Chris Harris, and Jim Neidhart come to the ring, all smiles all around. A segment rating here of 46. And effectively what happens is that, first of all, Bruce Hart gets on the microphone and he says that the last couple of shows have seen the culmination of a plan that was put into motion a number of months ago and has finally allowed him to get the tag team title off of James Storm and finally serve him up his notice, something that he's been trying to do for over a year. And he turns on the crowd a little bit here because the crowd are booing him. And Bruce Hart says, look, you all wanted this. You know, a year ago when it was revealed that James Storm was under the mask and that he'd basically avoided a pre-match stipulation way back in, I think it was 1998 or certainly 99, a long time ago anyway. It was 98, in fact. And he went under a mask where he should have left the company, went under a mask instead and won the title and then was unmasked. Everybody here wanted James Storm to be out of this company. But somewhere over the course of the year, you all sold out. You all became hypocrites and decided you wanted something else and you wanted to see him carry on. Well, it's not happening. He is not going to be here anymore. And he says that James Storm was served his 30-day notice at the last event. That the number of days is now down to 16 days. And he says that seeing as he's only got 16 days left as an employee of the Random Wrestling Review, Bruce Hart says he's not going to book him again. He sees no need to book James Storm ever again. He says to the fans that he hopes that they took advantage whilst he was here because they will never see him again. Then we had Chris Harris take the microphone and he talked about the fact that when he came into the company, he and James Storm entered into a business relationship which was offered to him by James Storm as a chance to be a Northwest Tag Team Champion, to get some glory in a company with a prestigious tag team title. And he took the opportunity, he took the chance, he jumped at the chance. Then he says that they became the most dominant tag team champions in the history of the company, and it was another major achievement. But then he talks about the fact that he faced Jim Neidhart towards the end of last year, and after the match, having beaten Neidhart, Neidhart offered him a handshake, and he accepted. And little did he know that this was the first overture from the Hart family to him to make a new deal. And that new deal, which he was what's the word I'm looking for? He was approached by Bruce Hart and Jim Neidhart to do was effectively to win the Northwest title, and they helped him do that. He is now the Northwest champion, but uh, in exchange for that title, he had to ultimately sacrifice the tag team championships, which he was only happy to do. He says he's traded up, and that the deal he did with James Storm, whilst very profitable for him, was not personal, and now he's managed to go even further and become the Northwest champion. And not only that, but become the first person to hold both the Northwest and Northwest Tag Team Championships at the same time. So that's those two laying out the kind of history of everything that's happened. Obviously, at beginning all the way back when Jim Neidhart and Chris Harris fought, and Neidhart offered Harris a handshake after the match. So into the matches then, and we start with Rex King versus Eric Young. A segment rating here of 34. Rex King was pretty decent. Eric Young, not so much, although not terrible. This one went 8:22, and was won by Eric Young by pinfall when Bobby Walker interfered on Eric Young's behalf and cost Rex King the match, Rex King being his big rival, of course. Then after the match, a furious Rex King grabs the microphone and challenges Bobby Walker to a loser leaves random wrestling review match in 2 weeks' time. The challenge is accepted by Bobby Walker, and that is the first match in place for our next show. It will be Loser Leaves Random Wrestling Review Rex King versus Bobby Walker. Segment rating of 31, not particularly great. Rex King struggled when going off script. Bobby Walker improvised well, but yeah, I think this is the end of the road for Bobby Walker. Then we had a tag team match. The Public Enemy defeated Mark Henry and Sean Stasiak in 12 minutes and 15 seconds when Rocco Rock pinned Sean Stasiak with a drive-by after the distraction from TJ Wilson for a segment rating of 45. And you can see here, Sean Stasiak was the best wrestler in the match, a 46 rating for him. Johnny Granger 42, Rocco Rock 39, Mark Henry 36. No one performed badly, and this was a decent tag team match, which continued the feud we've had between Mark Henry and Sean Stasiak, TJ Wilson, and Teddy Hart. Then we had the first defense of the Northwest title for Chris Harris against C.W. Anderson, 10 minutes and 33 seconds by pinfall. Chris Harris sustained a chronic shoulder pain in this match. That could be a major problem for us. I don't know how long that's going to last, whether that puts Chris Harris out of action or not. Whatever the case, Chris Harris has made his first defense of the Northwest title. A segment rating of 38, which I think would have been far better had Chris Harris not suffered the injury. He did a 46 in the ring, C.W. Anderson a 36. So this was a little bit lower than I was hoping for, but I think that's largely due to the injury. And we'll obviously have to pay close attention to that injury after the show. So next up, we have the tag team match, which featured Buddy Wayne and CM Punk against Ace Steel and Billy Kidman. Billy Kidman and Ace Steel do not work well as a team. Their timing was all over the place. Thankfully, we don't need them to be a tag team too regularly. This had a segment rating of 47, though, so a really good match. Buddy Wayne pinned Billy Kidman in 14 minutes and 18 seconds of this one, and everyone performed pretty well. Kidman was only a 36, Buddy Wayne off his game with a 38, Punk, though, a 48, and Ace Steel a 41. Both storylines advanced with this segment, and this was a pretty good match with plenty of heat. And so to the main event, which was Batista versus Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Only a segment rating of 51 here. You've seen Jim Neidhart do a lot better than this. His in-ring performance was a 55, and that might be because he was reluctant to even go to a double count out with Batista. But this ended up being a draw in 13 minutes, 16 seconds. Their story gained some heat between the two of these. Batista did a 40, which was pretty good for him. Then after the match, Jim Neidhart goes after Batista and to attack him, and Chris Harris joins him, and the two of them start to beat Batista down until James Storm arrives on the scene and makes the save to run off Neidhart and Chris Harris for a segment rating of 48 and a finish to this show, which was pretty positive with the fans cheering on the babyface James Storm, who came in here to make the save for Dave Batista. And that is the end of the event. An overall rating of 48, which is very respectable indeed. Perhaps not as great as I was hoping for, but Batista versus Jim Neidhart was really good. I mean, that's another reason why I put the Anvil in the main event, is that he has been the best. You know, his level of popularity means that his matches have been pretty much all the best matches we've had in history of the company. Buddy Wayne and CM Punk, Ace Steel, and Billy Kidman tag team match was very good. So was the Public Enemy, Mark Henry and Sean Stasiak tag match. All in all, this was a good show, and I think would have been slightly better had Chris Harris not suffered that injury. We'll see, as I said, how that affects him. I think we're going to say to Jim Neidhart, we're going to compliment him because he wasn't happy about losing the match that we asked him to lose. I think CM Punk was our best performer on the night. So we'll compliment Punk as well. And what else shall we do here? Anything? Well, we do need to do something else. We want to compliment somebody else. I'm tempted to go with, who should I go with? It's not an easy choice. I mean, Chris Harris was actually very good in his match. He just got injured. We'll point him out as a good example for finishing his duties in terms of booking on the night. So that was Fighting Spirit 4. Let's just have a quick look and see what the reaction to it was. Last night's Fighting Spirit 4. The feedback has been awesome, which is usually what we get. So let's have a look at this Chris Harris injury, because I think this is pretty important, actually. He is 30 days, but it's being worked through. So Harris will be in action at our next match, our next show, but he will be carrying an injury as he does it. Charlie has 41 days still to go until his return. First title defense for Chris Harris wasn't the best, but wasn't awful either. Would no doubt have been better had Chris Harris not suffered that injury. But he, of course, has got his first defense of that title. And I guess I can reveal to you right now what the main event of our next event is going to be, because it's going to see Chris Harris and Jim Neidhart against James Storm and Dave Batista. And it will feature James Storm, who has 2 days left on his contract. So we're going to see how that plays out. But certainly, as things stand, James Storm is due to no longer be with the company after this next event. So, things have got really real for him. That particular show was the fourth best in our history. In terms of attendances, it was sixth best, and in terms of paid attendances, only behind 3 different shows. And in terms of matches, the match between Jim Neidhart and Dave Batista was 8th best in company history. So Jim Neidhart has now been involved in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the top 10 matches in the company's history. That his popularity has meant that we've been able to do that. He's obviously a very high level of popularity. And that is that event. I think we now need to progress. So Jim Neidhart has got big morale issues. Now, I don't want him to leave before the next event. If he's going to leave, he can leave, but not until after the next event, because that's the planned main event. So I might just give Jim Neidhart. Can I give him a week off when obviously it doesn't make any difference because we don't have a show in the next week. He is angry because of the booking. Let's have a look at what we can do. Can we give him time off? We can give him 1 week time off. I think I'm going to try this because we're not going to run a show in a week. He's pleased at being given time off for that week. He's still angry though, which means his morale issues are still big. I think we're going to just try and run the gauntlet and hope that he sticks around. We need to come up with a name for our next show. And I'm wondering whether or not I wonder if I can come up with something around the fact that this is due to be James Storm's final event here for this show name. Trying to use the word storm in some kind of way. I think is the end of the storm. Who on the nose? No, I'm not gonna do that. I just feel like it's a bit too meta to do that. So I'm gonna call it that. RWR End of the World. New Dawn, Rock and Ruin, Hellbound, High Voltage, Take No Prisoners, Blown Away, Blackout, Breaking Down, Power Slam. Nothing is striking me as particularly it's particularly appealing to me at this point. IWR Danger Zone. Oh, this is not good. Nothing is taking my fancy. Come on, there's got to be something that I can use. I think we have used all the best names, and they're not particularly good names as it is. RWR. What are we going to call it? We're going to call it RWR Mega Slam. Are we going to call it? Yeah, Mega Slam. Let's just do that. It's going to be a special event, not a regular one. We got people available for that day, Monday, week 4. Save. Yeah. Okay, RWR Mega Slam is going to be in there. How many shows will we have had at the conclusion of this one? 87. So 88 will be the next show. I was going to see if that was a significant enough number that I could just call the show, you know, RWR 88 or something. But didn't really work out for me. There we go. And that brings us to the end of the episode today. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed today's video, give us a like. Hit the subscribe button if you want to continue to carry on watching this series as it goes on. And it will be going on for some way yet. Obviously, I've got the plans for the next show. And then we will be hitting the Golden Triangle tournament, which is where probably things will start to reset themselves because, obviously, we've basically concluded the James Storm Bruce Hart story. We're going to see Bobby Walker leaving the company. There's one or two things that are kind of coming to a head right now. So yeah, it could be a bit of a reset in the next couple of episodes. But anyway, until the next time, thank you for watching today.